Hey everybody, Evan here. So in the previous video, you saw Matt explain how Git and GitHub works. Now, I've been doing this a while, so I'm fairly confident when I say that none of you walked away from that video understanding how Git and GitHub works. It's not your fault though, nor is it Matt's fault. That's not at all what I'm trying to say. Git and GitHub are pretty monstrous beasts of a thing. Or at least they feel that way. They're not really. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at. They're not nearly as complicated as they seem. Now, I'm guessing you probably didn't try to replicate what Matt was doing in the previous video. If you did, bravo, you're my new favorite student. But you probably didn't, and you should. But I also understand that if you have no idea what's going on, it can be really hard to try to copy what you're seeing on screen, especially since you're not using Matt's computer. You may not even be using an Apple computer the way he was in the previous video. So the purpose of this video is to show you the same process, a little slower, without all of the introduction to downloading GitHub and what GitHub is and all that. We're just going to focus on the process of taking a project and adding it to a new repository. Additionally, I myself am using a Windows PC, so you will get a little bit of a different perspective. It's the same process, but if you're out there using a Windows and you felt confounded by the previous video, well, this is for you. This is for you folks out there. Okay. So, what's the story here? I have, on the right, one project folder. It's called SVG Demo Test. Doesn't matter what it's called. That's what this is called. Could be called anything. Week 1 exercises, Week 2 exercises. This is called SVG Demo Test. And as you can see, when I open it up, it's a regular old project folder. Index, CSS, images. It's got all the workings of a coding project from Codify Academy. Now, to add this to a GitHub repository, which everybody should do with all of their projects and all of their exercises from here on out, I am going to go to github.com. Once I am on github.com, I'm signed in to github.com. If you don't yet have an account with github.com, create an account with github.com so that you are signed in to github.com. Sign up and sign in, okay? I'm signed in. I see my profile up here on the right. Signed in as EvanW89. Now I'm not going to touch anything except this green New Repository button right here. Now let's take a moment and see what this site looks like on a smaller screen. Nothing happens. I can still see the New Repository button. On a larger screen, I can still see the New Repository button. It moved a little, but I can still see it. It's still there. So you should easily be able to find from github.com, the home page, the New Repository button. I'm going to click on the New Repository button. Having done so, I come to this new page which says Create a New Repository. I'm going to give this repository a name. I'm going to call it SVG Demo Test, just like the name of my project folder. And just so you know, just like the names of your project folders, you should not and cannot use spaces in here. Okay? Don't use spaces. You should also observe the same naming conventions by not starting with a capital letter, things like that. Okay? So I gave it a name. I can give it a description, but I'm not going to. You can give it any description you want. I'm going to choose not to give it a description right now. I'm going to make my repository public. If it isn't already, it should by default be public. I want this checkbox to remain unchecked. Do not check it. If it is checked, uncheck it. Okay, we do not want to initialize this repository with a README. So, what did I do? Recap. I gave my repository a name and nothing else. I did nothing else. Now I'm going to click on Create Repository. That takes me to a page that looks like this. Okay? Now, Matt showed you a very helpful guide for pushing a project to a new repository. I'm going to pull that up. I'm going to open a new tab and type in Create New Repo from Command Line GitHub. First link is that guide which Matt was using. Adding an existing project to GitHub using the command line. Okay, so let's recap. Step 1, create a new repository on GitHub. To avoid errors, do not initialize the new repository with a README, license, or gitignore files. So basically, leave that last box unchecked. Number 2, open Git Bash. This is a place where a lot of people get confused. Now, by now, you should all have downloaded GitHub and installed it on your computers. What is Git Bash? Okay, Git Bash is where we write Git. Now, if you're confused because you thought, well, I thought we did that in our command line or our terminal, you're absolutely correct. If you are on an Apple, you will open your terminal, and that is where you will write Git. You're officially in Git Bash for all intents and purposes. Okay? For an Apple, if you're using an Apple computer, open your terminal. That's all you need to do. That's all that this means. Open your terminal. If you don't know how to find your terminal, click on the magnifying glass in the top right of your screen, which every Apple has, and search for terminal. It should pop right up. If you're on a Windows, do not open your terminal or your command line. Instead, we are going to open Git Bash. This is a Git Bash window. For Windows and Windows only, GitHub installs a separate command line interface like this called Git Bash. If you don't know where it is, click on the Windows icon in the bottom left corner of your screen and type in Git Bash, G-I-T space B-A-S-H. I'm also going to open my terminal or my command prompt just to show you the difference. Okay, this on the left is my command prompt. This on the right is Git Bash. No, yes. No, yes. No, yes. If you can't tell, I've been explaining this ad nauseum for a long time. So, open up Git Bash, and once we have it open, we can move on to number 3. Change the current working directory to your local project. Change the current working directory to your local project. Now, in class and on every set of exercises that you see from here on out, all of your exercises come with a guide that takes you through every step of this process in an even clearer way than this guide here, including by showing you how to change the current working directory to your local project. Okay, so I'm not going to bother pulling that up because you will see that guide again and again every single week from here on out. But don't ask me how to change the current working directory to your local project. In order to do that, we need to use a command inside Git Bash, which is written as cd. cd, short for change directory. Okay? Now, what are we changing directory from? Directory, if you're not familiar, is simply our address on the computer at the moment. Now, as Matt explained in the previous video, when we open our terminal on an Apple computer, or when we open our Git bash, or even our command prompt on a Windows, when we are in Git and prepared to write inside Git with the Git language, we are, by default, in our users folder, our specific user folder. Remember, Matt was in the XIA folder? Well, in my case, if I go into my C drive and click on users, I am in the Evan Winston folder. I'm in the Evan Winston folder. That's where I'm starting from. So if your name is Jane Smith, you're probably in the Jane Smith user folder. All of your user folders, without exception, every single one of you who's watching this video, unless you're on a Linux machine or something, every single one of you are in your user folder when you open up Git Bash. And inside your user folder is your desktop folder. That is the most important thing I need you to know right now. Inside your user folder is your desktop folder. Okay, so if I wanted to get to my desktop from my user folder, I would type in cd space desktop and hit enter. And now look, this little yellow squiggly tilde at the end has changed. Now it's telling me that the current directory is the desktop. Okay, this tilde just tells me we're at the beginning. We're in the user folder. Now we've added /desktop. This is a file path, guys. This is a file path. Okay? So I want to, once again, change the current working directory to your local project. Well, this is my local project. This. So to get to my local project from the desktop, I'm going to add cd svg-demo-test. And this works because svg demo test is on my desktop, as we can see. Okay, you guys might not have your project on your desktop. You guys might have your project inside Codify, inside week 03, inside homework, or anything of the sort. You must be able to figure out how to navigate to your local project folder, wherever it may be, from your users folder, from your desktop. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning. See, now I'm back in my user folder, my Evan Winston folder. If I wanted to get to my Google replica project in my week 01 folder, in my Codify folder on my desktop, I would write the following: cd desktop /codify /week 01 /Google replica. Okay? And that will work. That will take you to your local project folder. If you need to change the number of the week, if you need to change the title of your project folder, I trust all of you responsible and capable adults to do so. Okay? Practice if you're not sure. You could also take this one at a time. You could type cd desktop and hit enter. Then you could type cd codify and hit enter. Then you could type cd week 01 and hit enter. Then you could type cd Google replica and hit enter. You can take it one at a time or write a long file path just like that one to get where you need to go. The point of number 3 is change the current working directory to your local project. So one more time, I'm going to go to my desktop /svg demo-test. And I'm in the right place. If you are not sure where you are while writing in your git bash terminal like this, you can type pwd for print working directory, which will show you exactly where you are and hopefully remove all doubt. Okay, but you don't have to. If you're confident you've arrived in your proper project folder, you're good to go. Now we get to number 4. Initialize the local directory as a Git repository. I'm going to type git space init and hit enter. And I see initialized empty Git repository in blah, blah, blah. Initialized is good. I'm going to tell you right now, initialized is good. If this is your first time pushing a project to GitHub, initialized is good. Reinitialized is bad. Reinitialized is bad. If it says reinitialized, open your folder, and you see that ghostly .git folder there? Delete it. If you think this should be the first time that you are pushing a project to GitHub and it says reinitialized Git repository, delete this .git folder. If you cannot see it and it still says reinitialized, you need to enable your computer to view hidden folders and files. If you don't know how to do that, Google it. Okay? It's very easy no matter what machine you're using. So, git init, initialized empty Git repository. Now I'm going to type, number 5, add the files in your new local repository. This stages them for the first commit. Don't worry too much about the wording it's using. The important part is add the files. So, git space add space period. Not the word period. You would be surprised how many times I see this. Not the word period, not a comma, not an apostrophe, a period, a dot. Okay? Git space add space period. And what this will do is add all of the files in the current working directory. Good. Doesn't say anything, doesn't tell me anything, but so far so good. Number 6, commit the files that you've staged in your local repository. So all the files that we added, we now need to commit them. I'm going to do that with git space commit space -m space opening quotation, and I'm going to type first commit closing quotation. You can write anything you want inside those quotation marks. Those quotation marks contain the message to you for this commit. Think of it as a label for this moment in time when you're adding all of your files to your repository. So later on, maybe when you commit an updated version of your index.html, you might write updated index.html inside these quotations. Right now, first commit is fine. Git space commit space -m space quotation, first commit, close quotation, and hit enter. Okay? 3 files changed. That's all I need to know. If it throws you an error, you may need to retrace your steps or reach out for help. Now, here's the hard part, where the process tends to break down for a lot of people. We're almost done though. In the command prompt, add the URL for the remote repository where your local repository will be pushed. This is not as hard as it sounds, okay? Git space remote space add space origin, that part of the command will never change. Git remote add origin. Then space, and you see what it says here in yellow? Remote repository URL. If you're not sure what it means, I need you to try to think about that for a minute, okay? You're heading into week 3, so you need to start being more difficult on yourself, more demanding of yourself in terms of thinking like a developer. I know it's a process. I know it's a process. You guys aren't there yet. That's why you're in this course. But try to decipher what remote repository URL is if you're not sure. Okay, I hope that you paused, gave it a minute, thought about it. What it's looking for is the URL for the repository which we created at the beginning of this video. So, it's contained right here, or I can just copy it from up here. Git remote add origin. Now I'm going to right click and select paste. Do yourself a favor and do not use the shortcut for Control V or Command V inside your terminal or Git bash. Just right click and paste or type it out. Okay? Git remote add origin, and then the URL for the repository that I created to receive my project. And I hit enter. Done. Last thing, last step. Number 9, push the changes in your local repository to GitHub. Push the changes in your local repository to GitHub. Git space push space origin space master. Okay? We are pushing all of our files which we have committed to the master branch of the origin which we just declared. So we're pushing all those files to this URL. That's it. Hit enter. Give it a second. You may be asked for your GitHub username and password. Like this. It's asking for my username, so I'm going to type in my username. Note, your username for GitHub is not your email. Your username for GitHub is not your email. Your username is this, EvanW89 in my case. Signed in as EvanW89, that is my username. Now I hit enter. Then it will ask for my password. It's on the other window. Here we go. See, it's asking for my password. Oh, authentication failed. I think I typed in my password wrong. Let's try one more time. Git push origin master. Type in my username. Type in my password. Okay, EvanW89. Password again. There we go. Now it's working. Okay, so it's not done yet. It generally takes about 10 to 15 seconds. Now it's done. Once you see, this whole command line with your name and the current directory, once that pops back up and the little $sign on the left, it's done. You know it's done. Now that it's done, I can come back to my repository, reload, and you'll see that it's completely working. My files are now loaded.